Hey guys, welcome back to the 208 Breakdown. I am Braylon McFetridge, your host and podcaster for the Spotify podcast that I have, the SRV Valley Report. Today we're going back into the On This Day in History deal. Again, I apologize for not giving you the last couple of days, historical events and all that stuff. So this show today will be kind of a combo package of July 18th, July 19th, 20th, and 21st, and today as well. And all those specific days and what that happened in history to make one 20-minute video. So, first of all, again, I'd like to say thank you so much for everybody that has seen my YouTube shorts, my trick shots, and my other content on this channel, the movie review that I did, and again, probably do Young Washington for the next episode on that side of the 208 Breakdown. So be prepared for that. Coming soon to this channel, probably later today. But we're doing this On This Day in History combo edition. Again, the 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st, and today, the 22nd. So let's get right into it. So we're going to start with July 18th, the first day that I didn't get a lot of information out of, but again, trying to squeeze out all the information I can to make a generally good length video. So July 18th. So on the 18th of July, 1936, General Francisco Franco led a military uprising which triggered the start of the Spanish Civil War. And also, Detroit, also at some point in history, I couldn't get a year or date specific, or a year specifically, but on July 18th, at some point, Detroit, the city of Detroit, filed for bankruptcy, which was the largest U.S. city to get to that point, getting bankrupt. So I thought that was pretty dang interesting for how big that city is, and it becoming bankrupt, which shows that anything and everything in the world can go towards a bad shift at any point. And that's what's great about history, because you get to learn negative sides and the positive sides of how the world has developed and all that fun stuff. So, July 19th, the first Tour de France in 1903. In the first Tour de France in 1903 was established, and a French rider named Maurice Guerin wins the inaugural event. So July 19th, that the rider, big old event of the year, Tour de France. And also on that date in 1910, pitcher Cy Young wins his 500th career win against the Washington Senators. So if anybody doesn't know kind of the more advanced history side of baseball, Cy Young is arguably the best pitcher that ever lived in Major League Baseball history. The best pitcher every year for the American League and National League in baseball is the award is named after this guy, the Cy Young Award. Best pitcher National League and American League win the Cy Young Award every year. And when he was a pitcher, he was the only one to get to the level of 500 career wins as a pitcher. So he was a Cleveland Nap at that time, and they beat the Washington Senators 5-2 in 11 innings, reaching that milestone, which is absolutely insane. 500 wins is even for back then, when baseball was, I wouldn't say easier, but it was more, I would say it was more hitter friendly, just because the pitchers at that time were probably only pitching around 40, 50, 60 miles per hour. And compared to today, where you can easily have a pitcher throwing 100. I mean, it's insane, the development of the sport as it's gone from, for example, 1910 to now in 2026, and it was just even at that point in time in 1910, 500 wins is absolutely insane. So now we got July 20th. What happened on July 20th? This was a really fun one to do. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin become the first humans to set foot on the moon under the mission of the NASA Apollo 11. So, Neil Armstrong, most people know, is the first man to walk on the moon. The second was Buzz Aldrin. They were in the same rocket ship, and the mission, the background around this is President John F. Kennedy, obviously before he was assassinated, in around 1963, had a goal to get to that point, setting foot on the moon. This event on July 20th happened in 1969, so about 6 years after John F. Kennedy's assassination, and it completed JFK's goal of wanting to get to that point scientifically, and what better way to do it is from the United States perspective. So, it was the rocket ship to get to that point was launched from the Kennedy Space Center on July 16th on an 1,100 meter tall rocket. They spent 2.5 hours exploring and setting experimental stuff on the moon when they got there. So about 2.5 hours. The mission took about 6 days to get from the ground on Earth up to the lunar surface on the moon. And when I say what better way to do it from the United States, that's from JFK's perspective. Obviously, I mean, his own country, you know what I'm saying? No slapping anybody else, just his perspective of what he wanted to achieve. So yeah, they spent 2.5 hours on the lunar surface and collected experiments and all that cool stuff. And yeah, they became the first humans to land on the moon. The famous saying when they got there was the eagle has landed. If anybody knows that, that's where that comes from. And it was just a really big deal that happened for the United States and science in general to get to that point where we're standing on the moon. It was a crazy thing. So, yesterday, July 21st, in 1861, July 21st, 1861, the Confederate Army in the Civil War beats the Union in the first battle of Bull Run near Manassas, Virginia. The battle can also be known as the First Battle of Manassas. And yeah, during the American Civil War, Confederates beat the Union Army. This is 1861, so this is about the start of the Civil War as it progressively gets worse and worse until 1865. It's got the most casualties in any war in our country's history, which is absolutely insane. From what I read, it's not even close to the next one. And also what happened on July 21st July 21st, 1925. This is really interesting, I found. John T. Scopes was found guilty of violating Tennessee's law of teaching the Darwin theory of evolution to his science class. The punishment was a $100 fine, which is around $1,800 in today's money. Eventually the court overturned that, so he didn't have to he didn't pay the fine, wasn't punished. He was perfectly fine after that. But apparently there was a rule in 1925 where Tennessee where teachers couldn't teach theories of human evolution, which was very interesting, I thought. So, there is that for July 21st. And I was kind of going over what today, and then it's kind of when we have one tomorrow where we talk about July 23rd, that'll be another combo because there's not a lot of there's things that happen obviously, but just to make it into a properly functional length video, we'll combo it like we did today, just tomorrow. So tomorrow on this day in history, 208 breakdown. It'll be what happened on July 22nd and July 23rd combined. So, there you have it, guys. On this day in history, July 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st. What I found really interesting was like the variety of doing this combo episode deal we have here, the variety of categories, if you know what I'm saying, like the type of historical event that happened. So on July 18th, for example, we have something that pretty much triggered the start of the Spanish Civil War. And then you on the same day, again, I couldn't find a year, but it was early 1900, or generally, honestly, if I remember right, I think it was early 2000s, but Detroit filed for bankruptcy, largest U.S. city to ever get to that point, just completely different perspective of history just from those two topics. And then you got July 19th, you got sports, Tour de France in 1903, the first ever. And then you go to baseball on that exact same day, 7 years later, Cy Young wins his 500th career win with the Cleveland Naps against the Washington Senators, 5-2 win in 11 innings. And then July 20th, the moon landing and all that scientific discovery. And then you get to the Civil War in 1861, about 100 years before the moon landing. And then we finish it off with probably the most interestingly weird one, where this teacher gets in trouble for violating a Tennessee law where you couldn't teach the Darwin theory of of evolution and human evolution, as well as that. And he had to pay a lot of money before they overturned the case. He was gonna have to pay a lot of money, which I found that very interesting as well. So that will do it for today on this day in history. I might do a movie recap and report card style grade for Young Washington later today, probably. Again, thank you for watching. Thank you for all the views and the subscribers and all the likes. Really appreciate it. Be sure to check out my YouTube shorts, trick shots, and obviously movie reviews. Stay on this portion of the channel on this day in history. Again, we'll be back tomorrow for July 22nd and July 23rd. Another combo, slightly smaller than this, but you know what I'm saying. Get more information for a good 12 to 15 minute episode. So I'll be back. Thank you. I'm Brantley McFetridge, and have a good day.